In today's Leeds news, Farke blasts officials, Rothwell knock to be checked, more international call-ups, Farke explains rotation decision, and fullbacks high on Leeds' summer list. Morning folks, Stu here, Thursday morning the 13th of March with your Leeds United news. After a good win last night, a very, very strong second half by Leeds United, and should have been a more comfortable win only for some officiating, but we'll get to Daniel Farke's thoughts on that, and he wasn't holding back when he was talking about it. Also, there was a question of the day in the comments pinned at the top down below. If you want to get involved in that, we'll stick one of them in every day going forward, and if you want to get your hands on a Joe Rothwell shirt, link down below in the description as well. To back a man that's had a phenomenal impact for Leeds United this season. Very, very, very strong last night for Leeds. But we'll get on and crack into the news, and we'll start with Daniel Farke blasting the officials from last night's game. Daniel Farke has clearly had enough of the controversial calls when it comes to Leeds United this season, and he wasn't holding back when he spoke to the media after the Millwall game last night. Last night, Daniel Farke became the fastest Leeds United manager to get to 50 wins in the club's history and bring Leeds United back to the top of the table. And on a side note, Jayden Bogle managed to avoid a yellow card, which means that he won't have to worry about any suspension now for the remainder of the season, having now passed that threshold. And now Tanaka back to his absolute best last night with a phenomenal performance, and the statistics that he put up last night really do beg belief, but you can check them out on LUFC data if you want to see that. But on last night's game, Farke was struggling to accept what he sees as potentially season-changing officiating mistakes that seem to be going against Leeds on a continuous basis, specifically over the last couple of games. Leeds had a Joel Peru goal ruled out last night after an offside was given against Brendan Aronson after a fantastic move and what could have been one of the goals of the season had it been allowed. A beautiful flick by Brendan Aronson which deprived him of an assist which he really could have needed last night. Great work by Jayden Bogle also, and then a lovely finish from Joel Peru. Replays show that Brendan Aronson was very much level and therefore onside in that situation, but it was given against Leeds United, and Daniel Farke pointed out that it's the same linesman who had disallowed Willie Gnonto's perfectly acceptable goal against Coventry City earlier on in the season. As expected, an apology did come for the Willie Gnonto situation, where Farke said he received a phone call apologising for the linesman's performance and saying that the goal should have been given, and the same linesman ruled out a perfectly good goal that should have been given to Joel Peru last night. And on that topic, Farke said the following: I asked myself, why do we have a rule? In doubt, you give it to the offence. Our new rule seems to be, if in doubt, get myself in the spotlight by waving the flag. It's difficult to accept. You can't blame the referee, he has to rely on the assistant. If it happens 2 times with the same assistant, it's difficult to accept this. It can change the outcome of a whole season. How many do they want to disallow? It's important, it's about goal difference as well. What would we say if Jake Cooper scores one of the set pieces? The amount of times it happens to us, I'm struggling to accept this. And as I said, he really wasn't holding back and has clearly had enough of the subpar officiating levels in the Championship. The linesman last night could not get his flag up quick enough after Brendan Aronson touched the ball. And if it's the same guy back to back, or at least in the last 2 games that he's been involved in the officiating of Leeds United's games, there is some question marks that need to be asked about that. Leeds also denied a perfectly good penalty last week as well. So yeah, they're starting to tot up, and it's a wrong time of the season for these kind of decisions to start going against you, especially when they're as clear and obvious as they were. But let's move on. Let's talk about Joe Rothwell, I suppose. And Joe Rothwell was in top form last night for Leeds United and was involved in a lot of everything good that Leeds did last night. The Loney was the standout player for me in the side last night, although the second half performance, there was very few players that put a foot wrong last night. They all were very, very good last night, but he didn't get to play the full 90 minutes despite the fact he put in that performance. And at the time, it appeared that Daniel Farke was allowing him to have a little bit of a swan song and get the applause of the Elland Road crowd. But it now turns out there may have been a slight issue with Joe Rothwell. Daniel Farke confirmed after the game that Rothwell has picked up a small knock to his knee, but that will need to be checked prior to the QPR game before they can rule him back in contention for selection for that game. Rothwell is a very important part of the Leeds United side. His bursting runs forward, his progressive passing, as well as his ability to increase the tempo of this side when it does get a little bit slow, all are very important factors for how Leeds United play. Farke could still, though, likely revert back to that defensive midfield pivot that he likes in away games with Ilya Groove and now Tanaka filling those roles. But Rothwell has done absolutely everything in his power to say to Daniel Farke that he is more than justified to hold on to that midfield central role for the remainder of this season, home or away. But we'll have to wait and see. I think that they do bring different parts to the game, different strengths, different weaknesses, but it's all relative to the games that Leeds will be playing. But yeah, Rothwell for me has done more than enough to make the claim for a permanent spot in that Leeds midfield. Very much part of Daniel Farke's thoughts. But we'll move on. Let's talk about the international window, and the most ridiculous international window of the season is upon us with 9 games left in the season. The international calendar pops one in March, where you've got teams chasing promotion, teams chasing titles, teams trying to avoid relegation, and out of nowhere FIFA go and throw an international break in, which could really impact a lot of team seasons depending on what happens during that break. But we'll cover the players that are out on international break, and I'll get off my soapbox, and we'll start with Charlie Crew, who has been called up for the Welsh under-19 squad for their Euro 19 World Cup qualifiers this week. Carl Darlow, Joe Rodon and Dan James have all been called up for Wales' senior side for their World Cup qualifiers this week. Rory Mahady has been called up for the Scottish under-21 games against Ireland and Iceland this week, reward for his strong season so far this year. And Ao Tanaka has been called up for Japan's World Cup qualifiers this month as well. And let's just hope they all come back in good form and in good health, and we don't see a repeat of last year where the Welsh lads came back with clearly their confidence taking a bit of a hit, and Leeds brought back other players who had picked up injuries and affected the run-in for the remainder of the season. A clean bill of health coming out of this window would be very, very useful for Leeds United. But let's move on. Let's talk about Daniel Farke's rotational decision last night, and a couple of scratched heads before the game last night. And Farke had been rotating his squad pretty frequently before the turn of the year, but since the season has turned into 2025, Farke has reverted to last season's form, where he pretty much picks the same 11 outside of that one rotation of Gruev and Rothwell, depending on home or away games. Farke said the idea of rotating against Millwall last night felt counterintuitive because he wanted everyone to focus on the importance of Wednesday night's game. Plenty of fans expressed some concern after the game around the amount of minutes and tired legs with this squad, but Farke has his own thoughts on this, and he said the following: "Many teams opted to rotate a bit more this week. We didn't rotate too much. 3 games in 6 days. You're tempted to think about the next step, but after a loss, I wanted to send a message. It was just a matter of what happens today. We opted that the lads who were not perfect should show a reaction today," and show a reaction specifically in the second half. They did, but Farke very much sending the squad who disappointed against Portsmouth out with a call to action to fix it or risk losing your place for the next game. And it went fine. Daniel Farke, he went on to say that the decision ended up in the end being justified, and with some smart decisions made this week, Leeds should have a sharp and fresh side out on the pitch against QPR at the weekend. Daniel Farke set another club record last night, Leeds conceding the fewest amount of goals after 37 league games in the club's history. That is 23 so far, and on top of that, another one. 21 clean sheets in 37 league games for Leeds United is the first time that they've done that in the club's history, so brilliant to see that. On a side note from last night's game, it's not really a story, but just to bring your awareness to this, and it's kind of gone unnoticed, 49ers owner Jed York was pictured in the Leeds United director's box last night. He's also the head man of 49ers Enterprises, and a person we don't really see. The York family are the money men behind the franchise in the States and 49ers Enterprises as a umbrella group as well, so it's interesting to see him at Ellen Road. You don't see him there that often. Interesting to see why he popped up and what kind of conversations are happening at Ellen Road behind the scenes. We'll keep an eye on that one anyway, but nice to see Jed York pop up at Ellen Road. Moving on to the final story of the day, and this one relates to Leeds United's summer plans. With just 9 games, as I say, remaining in the championship season, Leeds will have one eye on the pitch and one eye on the summer transfer window, with a potential return to the Premier League coming up in the summer. Jayden Bogle and Junior Firpo have been in fantastic form so far this season for Leeds, but upgrades are always worth looking at, specifically if you're talking about a return to the Premier League should that happen. Firpo is said this week to be a target of Besiktas in Turkey and Real Betis in Spain. And recently Firpo changed his agencies to a Spanish agency, which might give some insight into what the player is planning in the future. According to reports this week, Leeds have several fullbacks on their list, and Kyle Walker-Peters as well as Hugo Bueno are the 2 names that are said to be topping that list right now. Walker-Peters is also a target of his former club Tottenham Hotspur and is out of contract this summer, so would be available as a cheap free signing for either club should the possibility and opportunity to sign him come up. Hugo Bueno was a target for Leeds United last summer, but they couldn't convince the player to drop to the Championship, and he instead moved to Feyenoord on loan, where he has been for the bulk of this season. Bueno, at 22 years of age, could be seen as a longer term replacement for Junior Firpo as an out and out left back in that position should Leeds decide to make that move, and a good prospect, has some Premier League experience under his belt, but still very much a young player with a lot of potential ahead of him, and should Leeds decide to make a move in that situation. But Junior Firpo's future at Leeds will likely be sorted out after the international break once Leeds get a better picture of where they are. As has been said before, Firpo is one of Leeds' highest earners at the club right now, so making sure Leeds can afford a new contract for him will depend on what division they're in. And then, as we always say, Firpo can still talk about future moves to clubs outside the UK right now, and as it stands that doesn't appear to be happening, but we'll have to keep an eye on that with those reports of interest in Spain and his new agency floating around. Folks, that'll be it for me today. We are back at 7:30 tonight for a review of last night's game and a preview of the QPR game coming up at the weekend. Myself, Paul from Leeds Therapy and Lockie Leeds will be on at 7:30 to talk about that. You can catch us then. Enjoy the rest of your day. If you want to get a Rothwell t-shirt or a View t-shirt, click the link down below in the description. I will talk to you soon. Enjoy the rest of your day. See ya. Bye.